Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Complete Sports Media's podcast. I'm your host, Darren Campbell. And today we're really excited. We're joined by a local legend, Canadian boxer, Dale Walters is joining us. Hey, Dale, how are you?
Hey, Darren. Nice to finally be able to get on with you.
Yeah, we've been waiting to do it for a really long time, but I'm glad we finally found some time to squeeze it in. And yeah, this is going to be fun. I'm really excited. Where should we start? Why don't we go to the beginning and talk to me about your father. Len Walters was a boxer as well. You followed in his footsteps. He was your coach. I remember seeing that he was the coach for your first 10 years, and you were 56-0, and really lighting the world on fire. Your boxing careers really mirror each other. You had similar amateur records. You both went to national championships, to Olympics, you both broke hands. There were just so many things that were similar in both your careers. It was shocking to see how much you followed in his footsteps. And tell me about your dad. Tell me about what he brought to the boxing world, and then what he brought to getting you into the sport.
Well, first I'll show you this newspaper article. Can you see that okay?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can.
That was posted in a newspaper after my dad passed away. I'm going to show you another photograph of my dad. Can you see that?
I sure can. That's with Joe Louis, isn't it? Wow.
That's correct.
Wow. Amazing.
And so that's the reason I fought on the undercard when Muhammad Ali came to town. Amazing. My father fought on the undercard, and I don't know who the other kid is, but he fought on the undercard when Joe Louis fought in Vancouver.
Wow.
And so they thought it'd be a great idea if Len's youngest son fought on the card when Muhammad Ali.
Wow, cool.
Fought here in Vancouver with George Chuvalo. So
amazing.
I was only 10 years old. And
wow.
They took me into Muhammad Ali's dressing room, and it was packed with people. And so I was just 10 years old, and I was fighting my way through the crowd to get to Muhammad Ali, he was sitting down, and Angelo Dundee had just finished wrapping his hands.
Wow.
And he grabs me, and he picks me up and puts me on his lap. And he puts his fist under my chin, and he says, "What's your name, boy? What's your name?" And I said, "It's Dale Walters." And he says, "You gonna be the next champ? You gonna be the next champion of the world?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna try." And then he says, "Boy, you might be the next champion of the world, but you'll never be as pretty as me." And everybody just burst out laughing. And I'm like 10 years old, sitting on his lap, just about crap in my drawers. It was funny.
Did you, at that age, did you have any idea how big of an iconic sports figure he was, a worldwide recognized man in the world?
I think to a small degree I did, but I mean, from that point on, that was 1972. I mean, he became bigger and bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, true. Yeah. I mean, he sure did. Yeah. So that's unbelievably symmetrical that your dad was on the undercard of Joe Louis, you were the undercard of Muhammad Ali. Your amateur careers were same type of projection. Tell me about your dad and how big of a hero he was for you. How much you wanted to be like him and have the same type of career that he did.
Well, I remember him always telling me in my teenage years that when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, I kept telling him, "I'm going to be better than you were." and I never lost a fight for 10 years. I started fighting when I was 6. I didn't lose my first fight until I was 16 years old. I was 58-0, I think. I had stopped listening to my dad, who had coached me for 10 years. And it became evident to me, when you're a teenager, you don't listen to dad anymore. Yeah. What, you hear him nagging you, sparring, get your chin down, get your elbows in. And I'm thinking, I have my elbows in, I have my chin down, but it was just little things like that I wasn't listening to, and realized that I needed to get a change. And that's when I and because I lost a fight, I skipped out of school when we were going down to Bellingham I was going to be fighting the #1 guy in the United States. And that day I skipped out of school and went up to Grouse Mountain and skied all day. And had blisters on my feet and stuff, but I got home in time to head down to Bellingham. And then I was fighting this kid, David Cox, and he was bringing it on, man. And I'm like, oh, this guy's good. And I fought the distance with David, and it was a close fight. They gave him the decision. And I'll never forget going into the dressing room because the Canadians that were there throwing stuff. And, you won. You never lost that fight. And I just looked at everyone and said, shut up. I lost. Because I thought I lost.
You could feel it.
And it was probably one of the better things that ever happened to me. I realized I got to start working on this natural talent that I have. And that was really a wake-up call for me.
Yeah, I think you do learn in combat sports a lot more from your losses than your wins, don't you? It starts making you realize I can't take it easy. I can't just win on my natural ability. I have to train. I have to take advice. A lot of things that you learn from a loss.
Yeah, and absolutely. And also what drove me as well is I knew when you're 58-0 and then 58-1, everybody wanted to beat me.
Wow.
And I knew how hard everybody was training so that they could beat me and say that they beat me. So that motivated me to train harder as well, because I knew that they were trying to kick my butt.
Wow. So you went back to your dad, and he coached and trained you again eventually once you got out of those stubborn teenage years?
As a professional, once after the Olympics, my amateur coach, George Mattis, who I had switched over to down at the Astoria Boxing Club, George, I still trained at the Astoria under George's tutelage, but my dad was the one who had to work my corner because George would lose his amateur status if he was in my corner.
Oh, I see. Okay. Oh, that makes sense. How big of an honor was it when your dad was inducted into the BC Sports Hall of Fame and you were eventually inducted as well? How nice it is that both you guys are there.
Yeah, it was very cool watching my father go in, and I didn't think about me going in at that time. But then it was a little more extra special when I went in because my dad's there too. So it was nice to join him. And on the evening that I went into the hall, his good friend Harold Mann, who I will show you here. Can you see?
Yeah, lacrosse standout, obviously. Yeah, the man cup.
So
yeah,
Harold Mann was inducted on the same evening that I was. So.
Wow.
So that was a great night as well.
Yeah, no kidding. You're in the Canadian Boxing Hall of Fame, the BC Sports Hall of Fame, the Burnaby Sports Hall of Fame, and the BC Amateur Hall of Fame. All amazing honors. How does that feel when you get that call and when you actually get to go and be inducted with other members? It must be just such a special memory, such a special night. Talk about those incredible moments.
Well, I must say that the best one was when I went into the BC Sports Hall of Fame. because it's quite an honor to get in there, first of all. And it's this variety of different sports and whatnot. So there's some other big name people from different sports. And I took the opportunity. It was the first Hall of Fame that I went into. And I took the opportunity to rent a limousine and pick up my first ever sponsor, Sev Morin, who owned Severn's nightclub and banquet hall and restaurant.
Nice.
And he was the first one to fork out some money and sponsor me to go to the Olympics, so that I could quit my 2 part-time jobs that I was training and that I was working, and I was training in between work.
Wow.
And I had a great real friendship with him. After Sev sponsored me, and I then went to the Mountain Shadow pub where Kenny and Dutch jumped on board as well. They helped sponsor me. And then College Place Hotel with Mugs and Jugs in Chicago Tonight, Jack and Jake, cool. They sponsored me as well. But for the first Hall of Fame, I picked up Sev in the limo and took him and bought him a ticket at my table. And when I was called up on stage, I told the story about how back in my day, sponsorship was kind of taboo. You weren't really allowed to get paid. You had to put the money into a separate savings account. And it was hard to get sponsors. And I said, but I'm proud to say, and I'm happy to thank him one more time for sponsoring me. And I introduced Sev, and I asked Sev to stand up, and he got a standing ovation. And a lot of people there knew Sev as well.
That's great.
Wow. The standing ovation, and I watched the tears rolling down his cheeks, and it was payback time for me. And it was nice to be able to recognize him for everything he did for me.
Yeah, well, it is tough for people to strive in amateur athletics. There's a lot of rules about accepting money and getting paid, and especially back then, obviously, it could lose your amateur status, and could get yourself in trouble. So it was great that some of the local community was able to jump on board, and then you're able to give back. That's so nice that you even thought of inviting him and having him there. That's really cool. To make him understand how important and instrumental he was in helping you quit those jobs and be able to train full time. That's huge. You might not have been able to reach the ranks that you would have if you weren't able to do that.
Well, what it enabled me to do is because I couldn't touch the money, so the money got put away. And then when I came back home and I turned pro, I made some pretty good money on my first fight because I sold the place out.
Awesome.
And I had enough money to put down a deposit down to buy a home.
Wow.
So it enabled me to get into the real estate market when I was only 21 years old.
Wow.
And nowadays, if you're 21 years old and you can get into the real estate market, you're probably a bank robber.
No doubt. Yeah, that's incredible. Okay, well, let's get into your amateur career there now. 165-12, never beaten by a Canadian boxer, never beaten on Canadian soil, was able to go to tons of international events, like you said, the Pan American Games, and many, many, many big moments. That all culminated with you making the Olympic team, probably Canada's best ever boxing Olympic team. Got to go to the Los Angeles Olympics. There hadn't been a medal won in 52 years as you stepped into the ring and started competing against the best boxers in the world. That feeling as you arrived in LA, knowing that this is such a great team, you're going in. Obviously, the Americans are always incredible fighters and hard to be able to knock them off. But you guys probably were the best assembled boxing team that Canada's ever sent to an Olympics, and a lot of pressure, but a lot of excitement, I'm sure.
Yeah. Now you'll get a little argument from the 1988 team
Okay.
because I've always said we had the greatest Olympic boxing team ever in Los Angeles, and I think I got to stick to that. But the boys in '88 will argue.
Sure.
They had a pretty good team too, so it is a pretty good argument.
Good.
But yeah, I mean, myself, oddly enough, the medal that had been won 52 years earlier, I don't know if you realize, was in the bantamweight division, which I was boxing in.
Same division.
And
I remember hearing that. Yeah, that's
the
incredible, isn't
Olympics
it?
were in Los Angeles 52 years earlier.
Wow.
So I believe they flew Horst Lefty Gwynn, who was the fighter who won the medal 52 years earlier. I believe they flew him in from Halifax to see me fight. So that was kind of cool.
Very cool.
But yeah, myself and Sean O'Sullivan got silver. Willie DeWitt got silver as well. Lennox Lewis was on our team, but he didn't medal. I was doing the color commentating for CBC when I wasn't fighting. I was calling the fights.
Fun.
And that was great to be able to do as well. And I remember when Sean fought Frank Tate and gave him 3 standing 8 counts and pounded him all from post to post for 3 rounds. I remember Doug Saunders beside me saying, "Dale, you've won Canada's first Olympic boxing medal in 52 years, but this is going to be the first gold medal for Canada in 52 years. What do you think?" And I said, "I think Sean won the fight, but he's not going to get the decision because he's fighting Frank Tate in the United States of America."
Wow.
The decision was announced winner by unanimous decision, Frank Tate.
Oh, jeez.
And even all the Americans were booing the decision.
Wow. 3 knockdowns. 3 knockdowns and he lost the fight.
Not knockdowns, but standing 8 counts.
Oh, standing 8s. Okay. Wow. Crazy.
Yeah, and then Willie's fight with Henry Tillman was awfully close too. But I did the color commentating for that, and I thought the decision was correct. Lennox was skilled enough. He's young though, younger than me, and Lennox's big problem at that time was Lennox. He didn't have the confidence. He didn't believe in himself, and I remember doing the color for that fight, and he lost the first 2 rounds, and then he went out and kicked Tyrell Biggs' ass in the 3rd round. And I said that's what he needed to do. If he had that confidence, if he had a little more experience, he needed to do that from round 1, and he would have won the gold in '84. But he took his time and won it in '88.
Right. Yeah, and he had a fantastic professional career as well. So I guess he learned a lesson from that loss, probably. Yeah. So there was a couple of things that I remember reading and hearing about the Olympics. One was you were on the way to the opening ceremonies, which means a lot for these athletes because you get to be amongst all your Canadian teammates in all the sports. You get to walk in front of the stadium here. Canada represented. It's a moment where a lot of people have memories flash through their mind of culminating in that moment. But you got sick on your way to the ceremonies and had to miss out. What happened?
Yeah, it was really unfortunate. We had trained that morning, worked out really hard. You're dehydrated. You got to have your weight down. I was fighting bantamweight, 119 pounds, and it was hot in Los Angeles, and I got prepared to go to the opening ceremonies, and then when I walked to the bus, I wasn't feeling well, and between the coaches and myself, we decided that it's probably not a good idea for me to go to the opening ceremonies because they last quite a long time.
Right.
So yeah, unfortunately, I watched the opening ceremonies on TV inside the Olympic Village.
You also had a bus incident on the way to one of your fights where the bus driver got lost.
Oh yeah. Which this I think it was the fight for guaranteeing the medal as well. But yeah, I got on the bus, and you see, my coach. It's another story. It's a little long, so I'll tell after. But he wasn't staying in the Olympic Village. He was in a hotel. So um, the Olympic team coaches were already at the arena, and so I just got on the bus, and I thought the guy knew I was a boxer, and he pulled up to the arena where the wrestling was, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like,
Wow.
aren't you a wrestler? I said, no, I'm a boxer, man. He's like, oh, that's at the Coliseum. And I'm like, yeah. So he booed it because if you don't show up in time, it doesn't matter. There are no excuses.
Yeah.
So I ran in and quickly got my hands wrapped and put the gloves on and ran to the ring, and because you got to be there, otherwise you're just disqualified.
Wow.
And I hadn't warmed up or anything, and bell rang for round one, and guy ran across the ring and punched me in the head and woke me up, and I went, okay, here we go.
Holy cow. You won the medal, and I remember you saying that initially you felt like it wasn't a win. It wasn't what you went for. You went for gold. You didn't achieve that goal and dream, but the way Canada embraced you, the way everybody told you that you were the first medalist in 52 years, and the way that it's been celebrated since. How soon after did you really start celebrating that, hey, I was a medalist. I did go there and achieve the dream. Not the gold, but who cares? You were there fighting the best in the world, and you're a medalist. How long did it take? And, I know you're proud of it. We're all proud of you. I wish you would have felt that immediately, but you said you didn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just the way it was. That wasn't the medal that I wanted. I wanted the gold medal, but I didn't realize the magnitude of the Olympic Games, what the magnitude of it really was. And I mean, I'd been to the World Championships, I've been to the Commonwealth Games, the Pan American Games, I've won five national championships, and I was just going to the Olympics. And I wanted a gold medal. I didn't realize the magnitude of the Olympic Games. And then when I only won bronze, I was so disappointed. And I literally hopped on a plane and went to Los Angeles, and I came home to an entirely different world. Everybody in this country knew who I was.
Nice.
And everybody was celebrating. I was not happy, and I'm a national hero. And it took me a long time to come to terms with it. I couldn't buy myself a drink in this city or in this province or in this country. Everybody's buying me drinks, and I'm thinking I'm celebrating with everybody, but I was drowning my sorrows. And fortunately, the Americans have their national championships right away after the Olympics because all their guys turned pro. And so I got asked if I wanted to go to Canada versus US down in Orlando, Florida, and fight the new featherweight champion because I was going to be moving up in weight. And so I did that, which got me back together, because I was doing a little bit too much partying. So I got back to the gym, got back in shape, and went down to Orlando and I moved up to featherweight and fought the new featherweight champion. And although I won the fight, I busted my hand in my last amateur fight, which put off me turning pro for a little bit, and we had to wait until my hand was better